This footage is excerpted from the public regular meeting of the Middletown, Connecticut Planning and Zoning Commission held on April 9, 2025. This excerpt covers agenda items 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1 Petition to amend sections 6.2.2 and 5.6 of the Middletown Zoning Code regarding special exception standards for cannabis retail and cannabis microcultivation and allow cannabis retail as a special exception use in the B1 zone. Applicant, Agent, Jesse Langer, Updike, Kelly Spellacy, PCZ 20253. 6.2 Request for a special exception to operate a cannabis retail establishment fronting Malili Plaza in a building located at 428 Main Street in the B1 zone. Applicant, Agent, Jesse Langer, Updike, Kelly Spellacy, PCSE 2025-2.
Item 6.1.
6.1 Continued Petition to amend sections 6.2.2 and 5.6 of the Middletown Zoning Code regarding special exception standards for cannabis retail and cannabis microcultivation and allow cannabis retail as a special exception use in the B-1 zone. Applicant Agent Jesse Langer, Updike, Kelly and Spellacy, PC Z 2025-3.
Yes, thank you. This, just for the Commission's benefit, this application has a public hearing which was combined with the special exception application, item 6.2. It sounds like it looks like the applicant would still like to keep the public hearings combined. Unless there's a motion to split them, they would still be combined. And one more kind of housekeeping issue. We do have one regular member that was seated last meeting is not present tonight, and Chairman Padavina placed Emily McAvoy as the alternate sitting for Commissioner Emery, who's not here. So it would be best practice if Commissioner McAvoy could state on the record that if this is true, that she has reviewed all the materials, was part of the public, present during the public hearing last meeting, and is in a position to act on this.
Yes, I reviewed the materials and I'm in a position to act on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we are voting on these each independently. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair, commissioners, and staff. Again, just for the record, I'm Jesse Langer of Updike, Kelly and Spellacy, on behalf of DFC of 428 Main Street, LLC, the applicant. And for the record, with me here tonight is Dominick DiMartino of DFC, who's the applicant and the property owner, and of course a well-known presence in Middletown and on Main Street. Jerry Farrell Jr. of Quinnipiac Valley Growth Partners is also here. He's a former commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection, as well as Zachary Kastenhuber, who is also affiliated with QVGP. And so there are just a few housekeeping items, and I know that there were some requests from the commission from the last proceeding, and I didn't know, Director, if you wanted to address any of this or if you'd want me to speak to it. I know that I don't want to step on your toes, so to speak.
My toes have been mashed to the ground already over the course of my career. But anyways, so there was a couple of items I was just happy to report. There was an issue or question from the commission whether in other communities where they have a cannabis retail establishment within their downtown, if that establishment has caused any sort of issues that related to public health and safety and crime and whatnot. And we had a representative from our police department reach out to those communities, and the consensus in the three that were identified, New Haven, Brantford, and Bristol, there was no issue in any of those three communities regarding public health and safety. The other, another issue was whether there was seeking some input from those same communities, economic development personnel or authorities as it relates to, are these businesses successful, and do they, have a positive impact on their communities economically. And unfortunately, we, despite the city's best efforts to solicit comments from those communities, we did not receive comments from them.
Right, and I would just add, there were some comments from the Economic Development Director in Northampton.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Massachusetts, and I don't know if you
can go.
Yeah. And so my understanding is that the overall impact has been positive from an economic standpoint, and that there were minimal concerns other than some traffic that had to do with there being two dispensaries across the street from one another. But the overall consensus was good. And in this situation, of course, that wouldn't happen because of the 1,500-foot proposed distance requirement in all directions. So that would not be an issue. And so I would also just add that the commission had asked for a depiction of the facade facing Main Street, and we provided that. And we submitted the drawings to the Land Use Department yesterday, and we think that that would be a significant boost to the downtown aesthetic. And Mr. DiMartino, of course, is here if you have any questions specific to that. And then there was also a request to reach out to the downtown business district, and my understanding is that they submitted an email stating that they could not reach a consensus. And so other than that, we would just emphasize that there, based on our due diligence, there haven't been any concerns regarding public safety in the municipalities where cannabis retail are operating downtown, as stated by the director. And by statute, these towns are benefiting from the additional revenue streams and the charitable endeavors that they're required to undertake via statute. And so with that, we'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have. And I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. If anyone in the public has any questions or comments, please step up and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, it's Jennifer Alexander, 110 Washington Street. I did attend the last public hearing on this and came away with a couple of questions, so I called our Director of Land Use and City Planner to pose those questions. And basically I was wondering, can you give us more idea of what this looks like? Because in terms of other possible applicants, other than the ones you're considering, it seems pretty clear that everybody here is influenced by knowing who the applicant is, because when this came forward without an applicant, the commission spoke against it, decided not to pursue changing the zone. And once we know who it is, then it's like, well, now we can picture how this would be a positive influence possibly. So that does seem to be an influence. So my question is, well, what if it's other applicants? What if it's not this applicant? How many could there be? Where could they be? So specifically, I was trying to drill down on what does 1,500 feet mean? And I just want to make sure that you all understand it, because there wasn't a lot of conversation about it last time, and I didn't understand it without asking these questions. So he said it's not really super specific in the regulations, but that you'd basically follow it the same way that you do with alcohol establishments, which I think have a 1,000-foot rule. And it's 1,500 feet from the door of the establishment in a straight line, and I clarified that that meant as the crow flies. And I said, well, are you going to be giving the commission feedback about, so where else could it be in the downtown? And he said that no, he would just be waiting for other developers to come forward and prove that they were more than 1,500 feet, but that generally, he had sort of a general range and idea. So, I went on Google Maps and I did a little 15-foot 1,500-foot things just to try to make sure that we have a picture. So if this were approved and if this site were developed, of course, if another site were developed first, the 1,500 feet would change. But if this site were developed, you'd be looking at 1,500 feet. You could have special exception applications from properties like the Trolley Barn where Purgatory is, O'Rourke's Diner, possibly even the Meeting House, but probably O'Rourke's and the Trolley Barn are the only north end properties that would be outside 1,500 feet. On the south end, because it's from the door, you could have all of the properties in Metro Square next to the movie theater, not the movie theater itself, but, you know, Cafferty's Dance Studio and that whole section are outside the 1,500 feet. Moonlight Sushi, DeVita Dialysis, the Rite Aid Building, Middletown Plate Glass, those are your possible options. So I just wanted you to get a picture here that what you're saying is not just we like this developer and we like this site, but you're saying that you think that that's also good for downtown to potentially have three, you know, one in the north end and one in the south end in addition to this one. So I did kind of put that on a map and I'll hand it out, and I apologize, my printing quality is not very good, but just so you have an idea. I did hear that the council, the Common Council, had raised some questions about whether federal funding, whether there was any question of that. Maybe there's no question, but I would just ask that you please not vote until that's resolved, because you know, you're influenced by who it is. I'm influenced by who it is. We all are. If it happened to not be that applicant and you've changed the zone, that would be a shame. So please be sure that that is not some kind of barrier to this project moving forward. And also, Commissioner Giuliano had raised, you know, should there be any conditions if this gets approved? So I would just encourage that, you know, one of the reasons, you know, this applicant has come forward with a project that doesn't have a door on Main Street. He said there won't be advertising or signage on Main Street, I believe. I know there are some regulations involving cannabis dispensaries that it can't have, you know, pictures of leaves and big flashy signs and stuff, but literally that there wouldn't be an entrance or signage on Main Street. It doesn't have a Main Street address. So these buildings that I'm telling you about, you know, you could, I don't know if you could, but could you put a condition that says if it's in the Trolley Barn, it couldn't be the Main Street side of Trolley Barn, it could be the Kings Avenue side, or if it were Metro Square, it couldn't be a Main Street entrance. I have no idea, but that's would be a possibility. And if 1,500 feet is legal, why not 2,000? Because 2,000 would eliminate the issue. When I did ask the director, where else could it be in town? His first response was, well, there could be a couple on Newfield Street and maybe a couple on South Main, you know, as long as it's 1,500 feet. So I just want to make sure you're totally clear. Right now, one is allowed in the city of Middletown. This, I believe, removes the restriction. The original state law was there could be 1, 2, or 3. That law is gone, I believe. So this could mean, I would appreciate clarification. Does this mean in all the other business zones, is it mixed use? Is it B1, B2, you know, whatever it is the 1,500 foot, you know, how many could there be in town? Because we know that there's a little bit of a bubble in this particular market. I think Northampton is in the middle of that bubble where, you know, there's the first round is the gold mine, and then you wind up with too many. So thank you for considering all of that, and I still would rather it's not happening downtown, but I'd like us to be very aware and responsible if we do approve this.
Thank you.
Good evening. Trevor Davis, 585 Arbutus Street. I also own the Webster Bank building downtown. And I'm also on the Wetlands Commission, so thank you for your service. I know how much fun these can be. I've been on the fence on this. You know, as you may have seen, I was here last month also. But I finally made my decision after hearing the chief of police address the downtown business district. And he can't endorse either way, but But he said there have been no problems at the legal cannabis shops, either here or in the other 3 cities that you talked about. But he said where the problems are the smoke shops, the head shops, and those things. And I understand you're going to try to address that in your regulations. So thank you for doing that. But after hearing those facts, I feel that the legal cannabis shops are the kind of those customers, the kind that we want to attract here. They do have money. They're not going to go outside and smoke right there. They usually just go home. It's the other ones that attend the smoke shops and that are the problems. So I think thinking about economic development, which is always my biggest concern as a commercial real estate broker, to bring new, good tenants to our little city. I think it'll bring the right kind of people that will also stop at the restaurants and the other retailers. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to hand out this map.
Okay, yes. Next person can approach.
Good evening, council members and commissioners and community members.
Could you just grab the microphone a little closer and state your name and address for the record? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Erica Thompson. I've lived on 99 Grand Street since 2019. My husband, Dylan Thompson, and my roommates, Jake Ray and Richard Ray, also of 99 Grand Street, are here with me, and they have signed this letter of opposition. We ask you to vote against changing the plans for the grocery store from a grocery store to a cannabis dispensary. On Monday, Councilwoman Blackwell brought to our attention that our Common Council approved plans for a grocery store on 428 Main Street. However, somehow those plans have evolved into plans for a cannabis dispensary without a mandatory vote by ARPA and the Common Council. This is unacceptable. I do not take issue with the dispensary itself, but I have a huge issue with the notion of prioritizing a dispensary over a grocery store that has potential to meet the actual needs of the North End community. This community absolutely needs a grocery store. Many North End residents do not have the privilege of reliable transportation, and our public transportation is not great. There is no question that the inherent value of accessible fresh food in this community far outweighs any supposed revenue a dispensary could produce. I understand that money talks, so let's get into the claim that a dispensary would bring business to Main Street. We already have a dispensary in Middletown and several throughout the state. It seems unlikely that customers will go out of their way to buy overpriced marijuana. There is nothing special about another dispensary. And does a grocery store not provide revenue? Further, a grocery store would provide 125 jobs that are absolutely vital and necessary, especially to those with limited transportation. For reference, Price Chopper employs 129 employees. Does employing residents, in other words, investing directly back into the community by providing a steady income for its residents, does that not contribute to Middletown's economy? Next, we have a hotel on Main Street that most weekends is full to capacity. I worked there for 2.5 years, and the biggest complaint about the hotel's location was the lack of a walkable grocery store. That's 200 to 300 guests most weekends, walking down Main Street, window shopping along the way. Not to mention, I was unable to get the number of Wesleyan students without cars on such short notice, but I think you get my point. Finally, I have heard residents and business owners complain about the hardship of having to encounter people who are homeless or who struggle with substance use disorder on Main Street. Employment helps counteract both homelessness and substance use disorders. I don't align with the view that people who are homeless or who have addictions should be hidden away for public benefit, but I do know that one of the most effective ways to not mask but actually relieve homelessness and addiction is to give people jobs. If the primary concern is bringing business to Main Street, I would think a grocery store would be the priority. If the primary concern is revenue, I would think a grocery store would be the priority. If the primary concern is revitalizing the community and meeting the needs of Middletown residents, the priority, without question, should be the grocery store. Quite frankly, I can think of few things that would be of greater benefit to North End's residents and businesses than a grocery store. We stand strongly in support of a grocery store, and I implore our city's leadership to vote against altering these plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Point of clarification. This is the first I've heard about a grocery store. This application has nothing to do with a grocery store, so please limit your comments to the dispensary and not to grocery stores. We are not speaking on a grocery store on Main Street right now, and like I said, this is literally the first time I've heard about it. So keep it to the order of what we're speaking on and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. There we go. Dominic, I keep saying a provisions place would be wonderful with salami hanging from the front window and cheeses in a grocery store. But I'm here to talk about she just mentioned grocery store, and I had said to Dominic it would be wonderful to have that type of thing in that area. I have a couple of things. First of all, the clarification of the information about comparing in the other cities. Did they have to make a zone change? I think that's a very important part of this application, is that this is the downtown, the center of Middletown, and it takes a zone change. And how many of those others were already in an area that was zoned properly for the dispensary? Number one. Number two, I don't think we've done our due diligence on this, and I've considered this a very serious item. And again, I, like Jennifer, I want you to think about back in September, because I do very much think that we have a very, Dominic is a wonderful man and a very good businessman, and he's doing what a businessman does by trying to get a tenant into his business. But I'm very perplexed, and I did call the mayor's office to clarify something, because I looked into the statutes about notification, and I questioned why, as a member of the downtown business district, and so many other people in the business district, we didn't get, even if it wasn't certified, that we got no notification other than by, if you went on your site. Well, what if a person doesn't even have a computer to go look what's coming up? It's such an important issue. I'd like to see it, if at all, on an election, voted by the people in Middletown, because they've done so much work to make Middletown such a wonderful little place. And especially for you having not been here last meeting, my concern is not the dispensary. Jennifer just mentioned a lot of other places. It's where this dispensary is, with so many young people and youth coming out, 400 students at the music store, the dance studio, the therapist upstairs. I'm going to reveal one of my true reasons. Another reason is because if it was just medical, I'd have a different opinion. This is medical and recreational. Just think about recreational. Now, we talked about the age. I don't think there's anybody in this room that can't tell a story about somebody being able to get alcohol 30 years ago when they were underage. And that is what we're seeing with marijuana. Okay, you can get it. I had a niece who smoked marijuana, but it was special marijuana, because they had bought the marijuana the way a person 21 older legally, but then they laced it to make it special, and they got more money. They are going to, we cannot, if we could stop it, we wouldn't have an epidemic. They are going to come out, and we have all these youth, all these young people, and the temptation is there. I have some documentation. One of them also is about smoking, because you did a very good job the last time with the problems with and what happens with smoking. Marijuana is even worse, and here's some documentation for it. So my concern is where it is, and that we're changing a zone specifically to have, because we have a businessman that we like to put a dispensary in. And we have a problem there. As I said the last time, like the elephant in the room, we have to all agree that there still is a problem down there. When I talked to the chief, he again said what he said. He couldn't say one way or the other. But he did tell me
I'm sorry, we have to keep it strictly to the application for land
Okay.
use, and we're not talking about if smoking's good or bad.
Okay.
We need to
Oh,
focus.
okay,
And
'cause that was addressed last
Commissioner,
time.
I just so everyone understands. Commissioner
Okay.
McAvoy was here last time. She wasn't seated. Today she's seated for a member
Okay.
who was here but is not here tonight.
Okay, so I will just wrap up with I'm concerned that we didn't do due diligence with notification. I also made a call because that facility did receive federal money, and marijuana is not recognized by the federal government. And so there's that, I'm concerned about that issue. Is there clarification? Can that dispensary actually go in where there's been money provided through the government? I'd like to see it. Parking. Have you had someone from parking? I mean, it already is just going on that one-way street is an issue. Have you had any report from them? I called the mental health. They weren't even aware of it. I said, have you had any statement? Or they said we did not even know, but it will not benefit our clients. On all, even the schools, the fact that we have the bus station, everything. I'm concerned about the amount of young people that will be exposed to the fact that these people come out. Once they're out, they cannot smoke inside, but once they're out, there's no stopping them start smoking outside. I know there's right now, they're not supposed to smoke. I still have a problem with the alleyway, with people smoking in the alleyway. So I would ask you to postpone. I just think there's too many issues that haven't been clarified, and I still think that we're not looking at apples to apples. We're looking at different. So I would ask you to delay it till you really have, because you are going to have your fingerprint on this, and once it's done, it's done. And I would just hope that it doesn't turn into the worst decision that you've ever made.
Thank you. Also, the state of Connecticut has already legalized cannabis use, and there are schools located near liquor stores. It's not a comparison.
If I could, if anybody online wants to participate in the public hearing for either the text amendment or the special exception application, please use the raise hand function on the WebEx platform, or press *3 if you're dialing in, and it'll recognize you as wanting to speak.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hello. So my name is Stephen Kovac, and I'm a member of the City Council. I live at 259 Pearl Street. And I'm here to speak for myself today. I'm not here to speak on behalf of our City Council, and I'm here to speak on items 6.1 and 6.2. As many of you are aware, Middletown, like many communities, is facing a tough budget season with limited options for increasing funding sources. Amending the zoning code and allowing cannabis retail establishments will have a positive economic impact on our community. Currently, Middletown is home to one cannabis shop on Washington Street, which we currently collect a 3% tax on all sales. That has equaled, on average, about $18,000 a month in additional revenue that the city receives. This does not include any of the property tax that we collect from them as well. How many bars, restaurants, and liquor stores do we have on Main Street that serve alcohol? Well over 50. We don't collect any additional tax on those alcohol sales. But I'd wager this additional cannabis shop could generate, at minimum, an additional $216,000 in sales tax revenue on top of the regular business and property taxes that they would pay the city. I've heard several concerns mentioning that this project is supposed to be a grocery store, and that's why there shouldn't be a cannabis shop. My career background is in natural foods grocery store industry, and I have a few points that I'd like to make. One, contrary to belief, we do have a grocery store on Main Street. It is called Its Only Natural Market. They specialize in natural and organic foods, and they do sell organic produce from a local farm, Forest City Farms. Two, opening a grocery store is extremely expensive. I understand.
No mention of grocery stores.
There's a reason for it, I promise. And the reason is that because this was presented under some people's opinion that it's a grocery store, and you're going to hear more, and I would like to speak to it. 3. Oh, sorry, I didn't finish that sentence. 2, opening a grocery store is extremely expensive, and the property owner most likely had no one interested in using that space as a grocery store. 3, the square footage is not large enough to operate a grocery store that could offer increased job opportunities that have been suggested. A smaller Stop and Shop, which is 5 times larger than this space we're talking about on that first floor of the property, only has between 60 and 80 employees. A new cannabis shop will create retail opportunities on Main Street as well as in cultivation and distribution sectors, boosting the local and state economy. Additionally, regulated sales will ensure safer, quality-controlled products for consumers. And while I'm sure many people won't agree with me, there is an unnecessary stigma attached to cannabis, and in many ways, alcohol consumption can be more dangerous. And while the council did vote on Monday to ask for the project at 428 Main Street to be rediscussed at the ARPA task force, that does not prevent this body from coming to a decision. At the end of the day, this body is responsible for city zoning code and land use issues, not the city council, not the ARPA task force. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll recognize the member online.
Okay, I'm going to send a request to person identified as Kristen. You have the floor.
All right, Kristen Raza, 54 Dorothy Drive. I'll keep it short because a lot of my points have been made. I'm also a commissioner, so I understand sitting up there, listening to everything. I just want to make a couple points. There's other uses, there's other zones that this can go into. So this would set a bad precedent, I feel, to allow this one. People have mentioned smoke shops. Who's not to say that once this passes, if it does pass, that smoke shops will now try to push the limit. So we're setting a bad precedent for that. We've had a couple of business owners speak in opposition and in favor, but those in oppositions, what's going to happen if they go out of business? We put in one business and we lose 5. That doesn't do very well for revenue for Middletown. As far as the parking situation, I read the minutes of last meeting. We're anticipating at least 250 to 300 people daily. We can't even hold that capacity now, and we want to add a couple hundred more. That just doesn't make any sense. Revenue, as far as that's concerned, people have brought up the budget for this term. If this does pass, it's not going to open tomorrow. So we're not going to see an immediate return. Additionally, if we do have this held anywhere else in Middletown, we'll still get the same revenue. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in this particular location. So again, I'm speaking in opposition of changing the code in general, 6.1, I believe it is, and then 6.2 to not allow the exclusion as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Sheila Daniels, 896 Millbrook Road. I don't envy any of you the decision that you have before you this evening. I want you to really take it seriously, though, and understand, as the past speaker said, you are setting a precedent if you move forward with this. The exception, the word exception, is there for a reason. You had a rule in place, and you're asking, or people are asking of you to change it. There's a reason why it was in place, and I think there's a very good reason why it should stay that way. I think if you do go in favor of this, you are going to compromise the integrity of Main Street. People come and go in this city, and there are people who stay. My children are the 6th generation on Daniel's farm here in Middletown. I have a grandson now. They are here for their lives, just as myself and my husband are. We love Main Street. We like coming down here. We enjoy being able to walk the street. I don't think that it's a good idea to have a cannabis store on Main Street. I think there's a lot of other things that we could do. We could do some boutique shops. We could do other things. Pocket full of posies was in Essex. Coming to Middletown, they're doing a better business. So certainly business can be found here. And I think we are a prime location for that. Our restaurants are proof of that we draw people to Middletown. I don't want to draw people to Middletown to buy pot, I'm sorry. So I'm asking you that you please consider this. I think you need to keep this in mind. I'm also concerned that I keep hearing that there's an economic benefit to this. We are joining everyone around the globe in putting economy before our welfare, our health, our safety, and many other things. Could we please stop? It is not always about the almighty dollar. Think about that, please. They also spoke on both sides of the coin around the downtown business district not coming to consensus. I think that's very telling. If that group of people who support Main Street and prosper downtown, if they cannot come to consensus, I think that's very telling. And I think you should keep that in mind. And to Jennifer's point earlier and some other points made around the applicant, I think you also need to keep that in mind. You're there to make a neutral, objective decision for the betterment of Middletown, Connecticut, not for the betterment of any one individual. I don't know the individual. I know that he has done work downtown. I thank him for his work downtown. I thank anybody for making downtown Middletown a better place for all of us and for those beyond our city limits. But you cannot make a decision on a bias factor. So please keep that in mind as well. I thank you very much for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Testimony from Councilwoman Jeanette Blackwell.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeanette Blackwell, and I'm a councilwoman in the city of Middletown, and it feels a little strange being on this side of the dais. Just want to say that. So before I speak on the record, I just want to acknowledge Miss Erica Morgan and the posse that she brought along with her this evening. And I want to say her comments about the grocery store has everything to do with why we're here. And she called me, she reached out to me after being at the council meeting on Monday to say, how do I get involved? I live in the downtown area. I will be directly impacted. So I want to acknowledge her presence and the presence of her posse this evening. And so as a council member, on June 2nd, DFC Middletown LLC presented what now appears to be a fantasy if I were to listen to the comments of my colleague, Stephen Kovac, because what got presented at the ARPA meeting on June 2nd, 2022, from DFC Middletown LLC was a project that talked about a grocery store. It also indicated that the area at 428 Main Street was a food desert, and talked about the benefits of bringing the grocery store to that part of town that would benefit individuals who live in that area. There was also a pitch for at least 125 jobs for the establishment of 428 Main Street. So again, perhaps we were pitched a fantasy, because on June 6th of that same year, the Common Council voted 10-2 in the affirmative to approve the project at 428 Main Street. Okay, then there was a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and this body voted 1-6 not to approve 6-1 petition to amend Section 6.2.2 and 5.6 of the Middletown Zoning Code regarding special exception standards for cannabis retail and cannabis micro cultivation and cannabis retail as a special exception use in the B1 zone. That vote was a 1-6. Okay. So then we moved to an ARPA subsequent meeting after the original meeting of June 2nd, 2022, where the mayor bring forward a question for the ARPA task force regarding he indicated that, and I have the evidence here, that the original scope of the project was to revitalize and restore a downtown building, but the business plans for what would go into the building has changed. Who knew? The Common Council certainly did not know. There was a consultant at this meeting who also indicated that, because the question that was posed was before the task force is whether under the rules of ARPA and under the federal guidelines, what uses are appropriate and are going to be allowable. I just want the record to reflect that there were several members, there were 2 members in particular, who one had indicated for the record that there was a grocery store that was the original scope of the project at 428 Main Street. Someone else asked about the contractual commitment that would prevent the use of a small, that would prevent the use of a retail space for a legal cannabis dispensary. Of course, the mayor indicated at the time that that was not why we were here, that it was a grocery market that was being discussed and no action was needed by the task force. So at that meeting, no action was taken. There was no vote taken on the record at the December 2024 task force, the ARPA task force. And what I also want to say is that at the June 2nd, 2022 meeting, DFC Middletown LLC, there was some conversation that went back and forth, but ultimately the task force voted to award DFC Middletown LLC over $2.5 million. That of course, because it was forwarded to the council on June 6th, as I indicated, and the council again voted for an allocation of over $2.5 million. And so I want to conclude my comments by saying that and I held this up at the council meeting this past Monday. I held up about 9 resolutions that the council had to vote on because changes of the scope of the project, whether it was a reallocation of money, a transfer of monies, that had to go before the council. 9 applications that we had to vote on. And so I wrote a note to myself thinking, are there double standards going on here? Why do some, because it's my understanding the entire applicant pool was informed that you need to stick to the scope of your project. So my question was, and still is, how is it that this particular project is changed and it did not go before the ARPA task force, nor did it go before the Common Council when 9 other applicants were told they had to go before the Common Council? And so for me, it's a matter of, are there double standards? Are we making special exceptions? I certainly hope not. And for the record, I want to say that yes, as Ms. Morgan indicated, and I believe it wasn't Ms. Morgan, excuse me, it was Ms. Alexander indicated that the Common Council voted this past Monday to send the matter back to the ARPA task force for a vote. And if the vote is successful, it'll come before the Common Council. And I noticed in your agenda this evening, you have the text amendment and you have the application for special exception. which is interesting to me because we know there's an appeal process. And so I did some reading and also did some outreach and discovered that typically you don't see those two, the state law says you can, but you don't typically see those two running concurrently. So perhaps someone is hedging their bets this evening and thinking that the text amendment would get approved and therefore they don't need to waste too much time getting the special exception approved. If I'm understanding the Connecticut general statutes correctly, there is an appeal process, and so there is statutorily in the language it talks about an aggrieved person, and so I hope that if this body does, and I implore you, of course, not to, but should this body does support the text amendment and the special exception, I hope that the folks based on the Connecticut statutory definition of an aggrieved person files an appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Blackwell illuminated and connected a lot of dots there, and I truly appreciate that. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Spencer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have also heard quite a bit about the council meeting on Monday, and I'm confused by the resolution that's being noted from June 2nd, 2022 on the ARPA task force. Now, my understanding is that the developer, the applicant, came before the ARPA task force with some suggested uses that could be possible, and I would love to ask him, if he testifies later on, what the process looked like. But as I'm looking at it right here on the City of Middletown website, and I'll read it real quickly. This is about midway through the June 2nd, 2022 resolution. It says, "Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Middletown that the Common Council hereby adopts the American Rescue Plan Act Task Force recommendation and approves the following project in the following amount based on the applicant's application submitted to the task force, DCF of Middletown LLC. Description, this is a rehabilitation of 418 through 422, 428, and 584 Main Street to develop 6 small businesses that will create roughly 220 full-time equivalent jobs. Downtown, the 3 buildings will also create 22 apartments, and the amount is $2,536,300. So that's just skimming it. But so I'm kind of confused where the discussion of a grocery store is getting implicated in this, as the application was for the rehabilitation of 5 properties.
Thank you.
Some clarification. Thank you.
Commissioner Giuliano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to both Councilman Kovach and Councilwoman Blackwell, technically they're both correct. Councilman Kovach is correct that we are the body that has jurisdiction over land use, not the Common Council. Councilman Blackwell is correct that this particular application or this particular project went through other bodies that had the ability to weigh in on it and mainly to approve the funding. I don't know what the significance of Monday's council action is. However, I am reluctant to put this commission in a position where we are at odds with the Common Council. I think we owe the Common Council at least that much deference, that we should allow that whatever issues they've raised to be resolved before we act. As everybody has pointed out, when this first came before us, it was non-specific as to what was being proposed, who was behind it, where it was going to be, and the commission correctly voted to reject it. Right? Now that we know where, the who, and the what, I think the commission was more disposed to consider it. And I think in many ways, many of us still are. But if, as a result of the Common Council's actions, this particular applicant is not able to produce this project, or the funding for somehow is called into question for this project, then we're right back to where we were last time, with a zone change with no specifics, and basically we're throwing the welcome mat out to everybody that might want to do this. I think that was something we didn't want to do. I don't want to end up in the same place. As I said prior, I don't like amending the zoning code for no reason. I have to say I am not comfortable in going forward with this tonight. I was prepared before the events of earlier this week to support this with significant conditions, many of which were coincidentally mentioned by Jen Alexander. But right now, again, the Common Council is the legislative body of the City of Middletown. It controls the purse strings. It clearly had something to do with the ARPA funding, which this relies on. And if they are now taking this back, I think we owe them the respect and the deference to allow them to do that before we jump into this and end up with conflicting actions. So that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, I concur 100%. We need clarification from the council. Mr. Loffredo?
Testimony from Councilman Vinnie Loffredo. Councilman Loffredo provided the following documents to the Planning and Zoning Commission. 1. Item 11W, Application. 2. Item 11W, Impacts Report. 3. Resolution number 87, Application. This document is the application submitted by DFC of Middletown, LLC requesting $2.5 million of ARPA funding for the project. Negative economic impacts 418, 422, 428, 584 Main Street. Here, the application completed by DFC of Middletown LLC is provided. The application is also shared as a link in the video description. The special exception being requested from the Middletown Planning and Zoning Commission is related to Building 428. Scope of work on Building 428. The first floor plans are to build a grocery store. The market is a necessity for Main Street Middletown because, due to COVID, people who live around Main Street don't have direct access to a grocery store. So, adding a market right on Main Street would fix this growing problem. We estimate the grocery store to create 45+ jobs, and a market this size will attract 500 to 700 people per day on average to this site. The number of people impacted will drive additional consumers to Main Street, which will help local businesses gain a better opportunity because of the attraction of the market. Item 11W, Impacts Report. This document is the impacts report developed and shared by DFC of Middletown, LLC for the project. Negative economic impacts 418 420 seconds, 428, 584 Main Street. This document is also provided in the video description. This slide is where 428 Main Street is discussed. It states, the grocery store will help provide fresh produce, meat, dairy, groceries, and an assortment of frozen foods to the people of Middletown in some of the lowest income areas of the town. It will provide access to food for people in a city that could be considered a food desert. And that this new market will allow individuals access to food in an area mainly without a market. The first floor plans in Building 428 are to build a grocery store. The market is a necessity for Main Street Middletown because, due to COVID, people who live around Main Street don't have direct access to a grocery store. So, adding a market right on Main Street would fix this growing problem. We estimate the grocery store to create 45+ jobs, and a market this size will attract 500 to 700 people per day on average to this site. The number of people impacted will drive additional consumers to Main Street, which will help local businesses gain a better opportunity because of the attraction of the market. Resolution number 87 to 22. This document is the resolution through which the project negative economic impacts 418, 422, 428, 584 Main Street was granted $2,536,300 in ARPA funding. This document is also provided in the video description. Councilman Vinnie Loffredo's testimony begins here.
Good evening. My name is Vinnie Loffredo, a member of the City Council. I live here, of course, in Middletown, 90 Dora Drive in Middletown. I also happen to be the chair of the Economic Development Committee, which I've served on for the past first term of the current administration and currently now. So what I have presented to you are some meat on the bones, if you understand what I mean. You were handed, or you were addressed earlier by my colleague, just highlighting what resolution we're talking about. Now, when the resolution was submitted, it also, as colleagues, so let's get to what the issue is here. In order for monies to be allocated for various projects, including this project on Main Street and several others that Dominick is involved with, ARPA money was provided. There was debate and discussion about, well, how do we go about dealing with this millions of dollars that are going to be allocated from the federal government to allow for a revitalization of communities and allocation of that money. An committee was established by the city of some 14 members, all then presented by the mayor and voted on by the Common Council with the clear understanding that their recommendations would have to be ratified by the City Council. So the project that you have before you today, or referencing, is this particular project, because it is 428. And so included in your document, you have the notice of funding availability, and in that document you will see listed the various items and buildings that are referenced, in particular 428 there will be, I'll just give you on that building 428, there will be a minimum of 125 direct beneficiaries there and so forth. I'm not going to read it all to you, but...
Councilman Loffredo, is this what appears on page 4 and continues on page 5 of the handout you've given us?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
I believe so, yes. But the other most important document that was submitted is, you have a copy of, I have a colored copy, but I can't afford to produce all the colored copies. But in this, you'll see the scope of work for each specific building on Main Street, 418 to 422, 428 to 584. And if you go to, not sure the number on the page, but it'll say Building 428 Target Groups. And it says the building at 428 will bring a minimum of 125 direct beneficiaries through 125 full-time equivalent jobs. The goal will be to create a space for 2 small businesses. Those include a downtown grocery store market and a ground-level restaurant. And you can, in the rooftop bar and all the rest, the growth will provide fresh produce and so forth, and it will provide access to food for people in the city that could be considered a food desert, according to the Middlesex Coalition of Children 215's food security study. Food access is defined and discussed there further. Then the next page, you deal with the first floor, 428 building, grocery store. The market is necessity for Middletown becoming, due to COVID, people who live in the Main Street don't have direct access to a grocery store. So adding a market right on Main Street would fix this growing problem. We estimate the grocery store to create 45 plus jobs. In the market this size would attract 500 to 700 people on average to the store. So 428, that also goes into mentioning the rooftop and patio bar. So what I'm bringing to your attention is that when we adopted the resolution regarding the development of these properties, as when we also voted to recommend, or we voted to adopt the recommendations presented by ARPA. This is the federal money coming with dealing with the fact that we had COVID and there was a major downturn. In addition to these dollars that are mentioned, there's another set of well over $900,000 that were applied to by the city dealing with a 21st Century Challenge grant from the state of Connecticut. $928,000, and this was a dollar for dollar development issue. I'm not going to go into all those, but that's in addition to those monies, you have these additional monies. Well, how did that grant get applied for? Who approved the grant? Who approved the application? The City of Middletown through the Common Council. Common Council, one of its major responsibility is fiscal in nature, fiscal well-being, as well as the dollars coming in and the dollars going out, and the responsibility that we have. I serve on economic development as well. But for the record, and clearly, I know Commissioner Padavina mentioned whether or not there was any nexus between the idea of what was approved and what we're now in. So at the meeting on Monday evening of the City Council recently, we raised the issue clearly. You cannot, and my colleague clearly put on the record, you cannot modify this agreement. That agreement is locked in, and these financial obligations are also going to be provided. You cannot put us as former councilman, former mayors, and Commissioner Giuliano just mentioned, we are going to be at loggerheads with it if you move forward with this. There's no way that, at the end of the day, all of how this all came about, and then to come before, we approved all this with the fact that you had already, with the understanding in 1971, you had the planning and zoning agent had clearly approved regulations that allow the cultivation and safe sale of marijuana to Middletown. The regulations approved by the commissions allow micro cultivation in 3 of the city's 4 industrial zones. The commission also approved allowing marijuana retail sales in the city's general business district, which is along retail corridors on Washington Street, South Main Street, and Saybrook, but not downtown. the other side of the coin, this area is also, in terms of when you look at the population and the makeup of the population in this area, this is the poorest neighborhoods are enclosed in this area of the city. This is not where you necessarily want to be, involving ourselves with this kind of a situation at all. So it's not in the best interest, but if you're going to go about, this would now be seriously loggerheads with what we approve. We'd be at a major crossroads in terms of our role and responsibility. And importantly, tonight, we had the opportunity, thankfully, because when I was here at the original commission meeting where you were having this discussion, there was some strong push to vote that night. There was need for myself and others to take a closer look at what was going on here. And thankfully, the commission did agree to allow another public hearing. And therefore to let you know, because then we would come to you if you had voted, say, oh, by the way, we hope you would have known the kind of situation we are now finding ourselves in. And I would have to also say, well, I wish I had the opportunity to do the research, because as you can see, this is back a few years. And I understand that a number of you are relatively new to the role you have, and you have played no role prior to this serving on the city council. Any of you're not former city council members that have some knowledge of this history and how that process worked. So thank you for the opportunity, and I urge you not to take any action in favor of the proposed change in the council and the planning and zoning rules regarding this matter. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Councilman. I actually myself was prepared to potentially vote tonight, but after reviewing this, and I know we said we're not going to speak to a grocery store, but we have documentation that spoke about that, and then we have members of our council and of the public that are speaking to all of that, and I totally agree with Commissioner Giuliano. I think that we need to pause on this and potentially go before the ARPA task force, because I don't think right now that we even are able to vote on something like this right now.
Okay, the public hearing is still open, and we have public that still would like to speak, so.
I did see some more people sign on, so if you want to participate in the public hearing for the item 6.1, 6.2 for the text amendment special exception application, on the WebEx platform, use the raise hand function, or if you're dialing in, press *3 and it'll recognize you as wanting to speak. There is one person online recognized, but I guess we'll go to the floor first.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Seth Kamens, 150 Burgundy Hill Lane. So I was prepared to talk a lot about that resolution and the ARPA funding. I think that's been discussed heavily. But I think I also want to kind of talk a bit about why I'm in opposition to these changes to the zoning, to grant a special exception. And I think it gets down to kind of what this original proposal of a grocery store would provide to the community as compared to a cannabis retail shop. So as was mentioned, between that proposed restaurant and grocery store, there would be about 125 full-time equivalent jobs. And actually that accounted for about half of the total beneficiaries cited in the ARPA application. Regarding the cannabis retail store, I've seen an article that includes several quotes from Jesse Langer. This one is not provided in quotes, but it cites that the dispensary would hire between 10 and 15 full and part-time employees. So that likely is a significant decrease in the amount of job opportunities available. Then we also get to the fact that even explicitly in the application and in the proposal, it was cited that a major justification for the grocery store was the fact that the surrounding area could be considered a food desert. That area within a 1 mile radius of 428 Main Street has about 13,000 residents, and 43% of households are considered to be low income. That is compared to the state average of 23%. So this is a community that is dealing with a lot of challenges, and I think something that we all are aware of are that the cost of living in virtually every aspect is certainly getting worse. And I think we need to consider the fact that not having access to a grocery store where you can, be able to get all your, weekly groceries or whatever. Having to, rely on public transportation for that with the public transportation system that's, not operating very frequently, can be unreliable. It's a major challenge for people who might even be working multiple jobs. And, you have to coordinate that around, your work schedule, your, taking care of your family. It's hard to even find time, so they might be forced, to then, expend more of their income than they should on, prepared meals or, less oftentimes that can be fast food, which is less healthy. And that kind of deepens, inequalities, deepens health impacts, and of course it deepens economic impacts because, it's hard to get out of a situation when, you're already expending all of your income just to meet basic needs. So yeah, I think that kind of covers a bit of the why. I felt compelled to speak today and to express opposition to this exception. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a member of the public online.
We'll go to online. We have Councilperson Sweeney. I will request to unmute you. You have the floor.
And zoning folks, I appreciate being recognized. I'm Kelly Sweeney, 259 Newtown Street, also a member of the City Common Council. As the commissioners have already stated here tonight, and thank you for recognizing me and my colleagues. We appear here this evening to request you to defer your vote while we clarify the process that got us here. As we're all aware from our involvement, sometimes things don't always go in the straight line you intend them to go. So I'm glad sometimes that we can deviate. I wanted to speak because I think it's worth noting that the applicant possesses a significant level of integrity. It hasn't yet been mentioned this evening except by his attorney. And I applaud his investment in our community. I'm sure he'll agree that he doesn't want to sacrifice his integrity or his previous investments in our community that are ongoing. I'm sure that, he would want us to delay this vote because the result of a process misalignment could be more rattling for him. Cannabis, grocery aside, developing the space will bring jobs and dollars to our city. I don't want to see that that opposition upset over misalignment or timing. So I'm hopeful that delaying our vote this evening, please do that, thank you, will get us all back on track and we can figure out sort of what needs to be adjusted in that application and the ARPA application in order to see this development come to our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Spencer.
I just have a point of order, quick question for staff. Has the staff had any conversations with legal counsel at the city level, kind of trying to understand where this all lies after Monday?
No, there's been no discussion with general counsel regarding this issue between common council and the Planning Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Mr. DiMartino.
Testimony from Dominick DiMartino of DFC of Middletown, LLC.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dominick DiMartino. I'm the applicant and the owner of 428 Main Street. First off, I'd like to say that if the board feels that we need to hold this over, no issue. I mean, there's absolutely no issue with that at all. One thing I want to say is that we recently just finished a job at 584 Main Street with ARPA and DECD funds. And once, as a landlord, we finish the job and we so-called vanilla box it, where it's ready, it's done. Our ARPA commitment's done, our DECD commitment's done. It's finished. That Schlein building at 584 Main Street, we finished it. We didn't put a restaurant there. We believe it's going to be a restaurant. We did finish the 12 apartments upstairs. Half of those are rented. We do have a restaurateur meeting me tomorrow at 11:30 to sign that lease. But I want to be very clear with you. Upon a CO, which we do have at 584 Main Street, our commitment to ARPA and DECD is completed. I'm not obligated to do anything other than that. And the other thing I want to make very clear is that I am not the applicant for the dispensary. I am merely the landlord, as I am to a lot of other buildings or places, not just here in Middletown, throughout Connecticut and Massachusetts. I manage and control, own about 1,100,000 square feet of commercial real estate. All right, have a lot of tenants. The tenant that's sitting to the left of me, they're going to be a tenant. They're going to sign a lease. They're going to pay me a rent. We're going to create a space for them to occupy, to use. They're going to come up with their own funds to build it out, put their display cases in, stock that inventory, whatever they're going to do, advertise it, hire employees. That's done on them. We're not taking money for ARPA and DECD to do that. Furthermore, there was some concern by some individuals that was brought to the attention of a member of the ARPA committee, who this individual thought it was necessary to have this very conversation, and we did have this conversation. The mayor was present, the members of the ARPA task force were present, and so was the woman who handles the ARPA, and they had talked about what we were going to be working on or trying to move towards. And the woman who handles, Claire, who handles ARPA for many municipalities, not just Middletown, indicated that when you look at our agreements, the actual contract that's been signed by, I believe, my son and the city, it's quite clear on what we can and can't do. I have no issue postponing this till we can get clarification. I don't want to put this board at odds with the council, and I want to be respectful of city council as well as the zoning board. But I just want to be very clear that what I need to do to satisfy DECD and ARPA, I have done it, and I will give you the opportunity to get this to clarify this. But I am a little taken back tonight on the path it's going down. I do want to pause and make sure that we all are doing the right thing. But again, when I finish my project and I get a CO, 428 Main Street, former Woolworth building, I could use all those funds 100%, create a vanilla box for any retail, a restaurant, whatever the case may be, lock the door, get a CO, which happens, and I'm done. Simple as that. If you have any questions, if you'd like to labor more about the grocery store, I have all the answers. I am a professional in the room when it comes to grocery stores and independently owned stores. I think I mentioned before, my day job, my real day job is owning DiMartino's fixtures. We sell remanufactured supermarket equipment to small mom and pop grocery stores, including bodegas. We service, all cities, New Britain, Meriden. We built Seat Towns, Key Foods, Compare Foods, et cetera, et cetera. And I did go after numerous independents, some fan favorites that we know. Lino's Market, very good friends with Lino. I approached Lino, said, Lino, got a great spot. Are you interested? Would you be interested in doing something perhaps with your son? The answer was no. P&M Deli in New Haven has a store in Brantford. They have one in New Haven on Orange Street. Great operators. Know the brothers very well. Done business with them for the past 20 years. Showed them a set of plans that I drew up. No interest. Ferraro's Market, New Haven, Connecticut. They just opened a beautiful store in North Haven, Connecticut. My father was friends with his father. I'm friends with the family. Know him very well. Went after him. Could not get them to do it. Sal from Avello's Market, another gentleman that worked for a market in New Britain where he was an employee, came to our great city, opened up a deli outside of the Wesleyan University, did exceptionally well, with the exception if there was more than 3 people standing in front of his deli, somebody had to stand outside in the rain. Went over to Sal and I said, Sal, I know you're looking for a bigger spot. Would you have interest? No. One, too difficult with the employment, the way things are right now, and I went to anybody that I thought that I knew that could handle this location. It didn't happen. At the end of the day, I'm not running Sicily Restaurant. I'm not running Nitro Cream and Crumbs. I'm not running a wine bar. The hamburger place that I'm signing in the North End, I'm not running that as well. I'm a landlord with great ideas, and sometimes big ideas. I mean, I like to talk big. I present something that, hey, Middletown is great. It's up and coming. If you hear me talk in the papers, I'm always advocating that Middletown is the place to be. It's the new hot spot. But in this case here, what I've presented is just buildings that I'm remodeling and then trying to acquire tenants for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to recognize a member of the public online.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lou Rinaldi, I'm going to request to unmute you. Okay, you have the floor.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
You're good to go.
You're good. Good.
Yes.
All right. Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to address all the folks in the room. Actually, I am a resident of Guilford, but I'm often in Middletown for family activities and visiting friends and dining out and such. My personal, I don't know that I'm necessarily permitted to ask questions of the applicant as a part of this process, but I'm just sort of wondering aloud here. Mr. Farrell is a Wallingford attorney and former commissioner of the state's cannabis regulator, and is proposing this this application in the guise of a social equity applicant. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. How specifically has Jerry Farrell Jr. been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs? And how is this not a blatant conflict of interest in terms of insider knowledge from having been, the commissioner of the entity that regulates the industry that he is now hoping to profit from? And, I'd like to know, I'd be very curious to know the answer to the question of, in what neighborhood was Mr. Farrell disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs? Was he just as impacted? Did he ever, was he ever incarcerated for I'm really surprised.
Please limit your comments to the application.
Pardon?
Please limit your comments to the application.
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is I would encourage all of you to not delay the vote. I would encourage you to vote tonight and to reject this because, you have real talented and passionate individuals in Middletown who care about the cannabis plant, who care about doing this right for the right reasons. And I don't understand why this applicant is deserving of a license ahead of any of those folks. And, I would ask that you reject this in addition to the litany of reasons that you've heard this evening, but for this simple ideological reason. I don't believe that this is fair or equitable, and it's a situation of the rich getting richer. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Are there any other members in the public that would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Josiah Schley. I work with the state level cannabis legislature advocacy. I've been all over the state talking with county and zoning boards regarding cannabis and advocacy and navigating all this since legalization. It's been pretty intense, and unfortunately I do kind of echo the notion of I think there should be no more retail exceptions because cultivation is lacking. It's the equivalent of opening 100 grocery stores when there's no tomato growers. We need more cultivators online first before, opening a bunch of brew pubs. You have to have a bunch of breweries first. And there's currently no growers. The growers are last to come online. And we're still working on the tax that the towns receive. You only get 3%. I think the town should be seeing a lot more tax income to actually impact the area, 6% instead of 3%. And just considering the merit of applications and where they come from and what they'll do to actually impact your town. And I hope that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, respected members of the Zoning and Planning Commission. My name is Christina Capitan. I am the founder of the CT Canna Warriors, a local grassroots advocacy organization that typically would support anything that is positive motion toward positive thinking on cannabis. But we also do have really serious concerns about putting this business right on the forefront of Main Street in your beautiful town, in your beautiful city. We think that a grocery store, something that's more community-centric, something that is, a little bit more, child-friendly, might make a better option for you guys to have on your forefront on Main Street. After hearing some of the testimony of the passionate people about food scarcity in your city, I think that you should absolutely reconsider allowing a dispensary right on Main Street. The state of Connecticut does already have a multitude of dispensaries available to people in our state. And Middletown also already has one, so I don't think it's something that you're lacking, whereas I'm hearing that you're lacking real solutions for food in your communities, so maybe just consider that. I know this is planning and zoning, but you guys are all members of these communities, and I would like to see you put your community members first and their feelings first, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last call. Anybody online wants to participate in this public hearing, please press the raise hand function on the WebEx platform, or press *3 if you're dialing in. It'll recognize you as wanting to speak. While I have the floor, I just want to remind the commission, or let the commission know, that there are 10 letters on the dais in front of you. If there is any intent to close the public hearing, we want to make sure that these get read into the record ahead of time. If the public, unless the chair says otherwise, unless the public hearing gets continued, then you have the letters in front of you. They're part of the public record, and if it's fine with you, then we can forego reading them, because you will have the ability to review them.
If it's okay with everyone, I would like to forego reading them. Commissioner Cunningham.
So I just have a quick question. I'm trying to sort of understand what is being asked of us, and I'm saying asked of us in terms of pushing this back off to the council. What would happen from there? I understand that ARPA committee has already approved this application. I know that their question is in with the difference. Is it going to be reviewed? Like, what authority is there now after it has been approved? Or can the money be rescinded? It can't be reapplied because ARPA's done. So are we trying to force the applicant to force him into a different? I'm just confused. What happens when this is brought back to the council? I don't know if anybody on the council or maybe in the audience knows.
Can I recognize Mr. Loffredo to come up to the dais, to this microphone, I'm sorry.
Good evening. So my colleague and I, as well as the other council members, is the question to make sure I understand it. Did ARPA approve the change that the applicant would like in terms of his application, his ARPA application, change it from what it was for grocery store to now be a cannabis dispensary? The answer is no. There was no vote by the ARPA committee, because if there had been a vote by the ARPA committee, then the matter would come. The modification of the agreement would then have to be sent over to the city council for review before that was approved. I think my colleague mentioned several other applications or ARPA applications that were modified. All of those modifications then came to the city council, discussed. So the process has been clear and unequivocal that that's how we agreed, and in consultation with how we were going to handle each town and each locality in terms of how it's going to deal with the millions of dollars and how that money would be allocated and how the checks and balances would be there. So to answer the question, the answer is no. The ARPA committee did not take a vote. If it had, it would then move on to us.
So now, what comes after this?
Well, just go. But Councilwoman Blackwell did discuss what was asked at the council meeting and unanimously voted on.
So, and thank you, Councilman Loffredo. So what's next? Great question. But the council unanimously voted. So it was a bipartisan vote. Want to emphasize that this evening for the matter to be remanded to the ARPA task force. And of course, the task force needs to take a vote. So when I think about what's next, it's the ARPA task force vote that needs to occur. And I just want to emphasize for the record, when my colleague, Councilman Loffredo, and I voted on June 6th of 2022 for again, I said perhaps we were pitched a fantasy, but we voted for a grocery store and a restaurant on the first floor along with a rooftop deck. Had I known then what I know now, my vote would have been a no. So I want to make sure I put on the record that I would not have supported in that particular location. As I indicated last week, I took no position on cannabis being sold in the city of Middletown, and I stand firm in that position. I'm taking an issue with amending the codes or making a special exception to the codes in order to allow this particular establishment at 428 Main Street. Thank you.
Microphone.
I think.
Oops, sorry. I thought I hit it. So the applicant comes back to the ARPA committee. Let's say they change their application to say this is what they want now. If it is rejected by the ARPA committee, his current thing still stands. So are we just saying nothing changes until he does what is on this paper? Because money cannot be rescinded at this point, correct?
Right.
So we're forcing the applicant into doing the original plan?
That is, at this point, in terms of convincing, I can't answer the question other than you, I think, have analyzed it correctly. So it will not come to the city council unless there's an affirmative vote by the majority of the membership of the ARPA committee to bring it to us. And then at that time, we would analyze what they're proposing and why they're proposing and the justification for it. And then we would have to vote.
Sorry, Councilman Loffredo. I just want to also emphasize, that's why I think it was critically important for the projects to remain the same. And it is my understanding that all of the applicants were told that your project needs to remain the same, right? So we're in this wrinkle now because we have a modification that never came, or an amendment that never came before the Common Council. And there were several that did come, whether we had to reallocate funding, whether we had to transfer the allocations. Those changes came before the body. This particular change did not. And that I take issue with.
Commissioner Giuliano.
So just for the record, since we spoke, the applicant has indicated that he wants to avoid what we'd like to avoid, and that is the conflict that will be created. And an opportunity, he's indicated that an opportunity be afforded to everybody to hopefully try to resolve the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I just want to draw attention to what was presented by Councilman Loffredo. On page 4 of the document, it refers to Building 428. Beginning with the second sentence, the goal will be to create space for 2 small businesses. These include a downtown grocery store / market and a ground level restaurant on the first floor that leads up to a rooftop patio bar with an elevator that will serve the Middletown area. Skipping to page 5, again, it says the grocery store will help provide fresh produce, meat, dairy, groceries, and assortment of frozen foods to the people of Middletown and some of the lowest income areas of town. It will provide access to food for people in a city that could be considered a food desert. According to the Middlesex Coalition for Children 2015 Food Security Study, food access, the increased use of federal food programs and food pantries corresponded to a decreased food security status, yet only half the households with adequate food security. The point I'm getting to is that basically only talks about a grocery store. If you continue on, unfortunately these pages aren't numbered, but the section that Councilman Loffredo described as being in color, right, if you start with Building 428 target groups, 125 direct beneficiaries, goal will be created, pretty much the same thing. Downtown grocery store market says the same thing, talks about food access. Scope of work, first floor plans in Building 428 are to build a grocery store. Market is a necessity for Main Street. Continue, Bill 28, next page, scope of work, rooftop patio bar. Exciting new ground level restaurant on Main Street leads to a rooftop patio bar. If you go through the financial breakdowns, again, it gives you 428 rooftop patio bar, triple net square feet, 428 specialty market, triple net 7,000 square feet, and it gives you the rent projections. The point is, nowhere in anything that was given to the Common Council is, besides nothing other than a grocery store, mentioned for this site, no mention of a cannabis retailer. So I guess what the council is faced with is determining whether that is a significant change from what was applied for. That's their job. As if you look at what they talked about, the 584, the Schlein building, that proposed a tapas / Latin bar restaurant. Well, if a Neapolitan knockwurst restaurant opens up in there, that's really not a significant difference. But this is clearly nothing that is being proposed to us was in the contemplation of the Common Council, the ARPA task force. That's a problem for me. All right, that boils down to, I don't know, is anybody a Judge Judy fan? She has a famous saying, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. I feel like I got piss on my head right now. And, and I can understand why the council would be livid over this. I served on the council. If this situation came to me as a councilman, I would be livid. At this point, I am willing to continue this public hearing and allow the council, the process the council voted on Monday, to play itself out before we look at this again. But I'm real close to just saying to hell with the whole thing, no. Because this is not the way you behave before public boards and commissions. You don't play bait and switch with them. And unfortunately, that's what I feel has happened here.
Commissioner Spencer?
I just had a question for the landlord. Kind of if he could provide some type of explanation towards the timeline of speaking with individuals who might have been able to open up a market and when you were approached by this specific applicant. I'd love to hear more about that if you could provide that, whether now or some other time. That'd be great.
the discussions in regards to the market was prior to signing any of these documents, prior to receiving the dollars and cents back and forth. This was a building that I purchased, again, prior to ARPA and DECD, and I also, because I bought it in such advance of those funds, I wasn't able to, I believe in one of my buildings, I was able to get a portion of the payment of the property reimbursed. With ARPA or DECD, I wasn't able to, because I owned this much earlier. So some of these discussions were way in advance, and I know this. I understand how this could look as you're saying, bait and switch. I can assure you that's not the case, and I'd like to just end this tonight on a good note, that we agree that, again, I want to make sure that I'm respecting Common Council, your commission zoning back and forth. I think the next time we meet, it's going to be more clear on what I need to do or not do. I'm very confident of what I'm doing and how I can get this done back and forth. It's unfortunate that it's going to take us a little longer, and hopefully I don't lose my prospective tenant that has an LOI in place. And I'm happy to answer other questions, but when I discussed the potential market, it was way prior to DECD and ARPA. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and I just had one other thing to jump off of that. This ARPA application was for 5 properties in total, and the total allocated amount was $2.5 million, give or take. Do you have I'd imagine you have a breakdown. Do you have a sense of how much of this actual grant went to the 428 property versus some of the other locations? I think, the 2.5 number is being equated to the money that went into this specific project for a grocery store. Do you have more information on that? That'd be helpful. Thank you.
So unfortunately, my paperwork, it doesn't break it down, but we received some $2.5 million in ARPA financing, and it was broken down fairly evenly for the locations. Keep in mind that between ARPA and DECD, we got summers around $5 million in total. DiMartino's investments spent over $20 million, or we're going to spend over $20 million on Main Street when we're done with all of these projects. So a portion certainly was given in a grant form with ARPA and DECD, but I also don't want anybody to think that those funds alone would allow DiMartino Investments to make the changes that we made on Main Street with that alone. And the next time that I appear in front of the zoning board, I will have the specific breakdown for ARPA funding per building and DECD per building as well for you. No problem. Thank you.
Commissioner McAvoy.
Yeah, I think Councilwoman Sweeney said it well when she said cannabis or grocery aside, development will be good for our city, but bear with us as we work out these procedural errors, procedural questions that remain. Our commissioners did an amazing job of asking good questions of the applicants, and I appreciate the context that our council members were able to provide. It painted a necessary picture, I think, for us. The applicants have said that they're willing to return, and I think that would be necessary to work out some of this and give the deference to the folks on the task force that really should be shown this. It seems like there's a lot of parties in our city that would benefit from more communication at this point, as we see from tonight, and we appreciate the willingness to take that time and do that.
Thank you for the kind words.
Commissioner Fulton.
I just want to reiterate, I think that we really should remand this back to the Common Council. The fact that we had 4 council members here and it's really contentious. They're not always here, and so the fact that they're here now and they're speaking out like this, this is really concerning to me. Something else that I wanted to speak to is the fact that we even have the DBD that they didn't even have a consensus, and that also is alarming to me. And yeah, I think that we definitely need to go back in order, because I looked at page 7 of the document that Councilman Loffredo gave, and in building 428, it says the scope of work on the building. The first line says first floor plans are to build a grocery store. And then the second one says second business for a ground level restaurant. And nothing in the presentation spoke to the grocery store, but it definitely spoke to the rooftop patio bar. So I guess I'm just really concerned at the fact that we have a whole new proposal before us, and that's not what was proposed in 2022. So I think that it sounds like we all are kind of saying that maybe we should remand this back to the Common Council, but I guess we have to vote on that.
Commissioner Spencer?
I agree with Commissioner Fulton, and I appreciate that the applicant is willing to, kind of wait it out and have this come before the Common Council. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really know what's going to go on. We'll see what happens. I do just want to point out that I did find the minutes of the American Rescue Plan Act Task Force regular meeting of December 11th, 2024. In section 4A of those minutes, before the ARPA Task Force, there was a discussion on the changing of this specific allocation. It was brought up by Mayor Florsheim explaining the change to the project, and the ARPA consultant explained that because of the nature of the original ARPA grant being submitted, that there was not substantial enough change that they needed to be taking action. So this has been heard. There's not a vote, but this was discussed by the ARPA committee, December 11th, 2024, meeting at call to order 11:02 a.m. Within the past couple months. So I do just want to put that out there that this has been discussed by that committee.
Thank you. Commissioner Cunningham?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same point, and also I understand that we want to cross our T's and dot our I's at this point, but one way or another, this is going to be brought before us again because you have the ARPA money. If you change it from grocery store to weed store, or my guess is what you'll probably do is just change it to any use, which they'll approve that, and then we'll have the same application above us anyway. So I'm just, because it was already brought up by ARPA, I understand that we're going to do this. The council already voted, and that's the way it's going to be. But I just want to say, because the ARPA committee was already aware of this, I'm a little frustrated by sort of the process that this has played out. And I can understand, this is a difficult situation, but I appreciate that you're hanging with us.
No, thank you very much again. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the public or from commission? Go ahead.
Thank you, Jesse Langer for the record. I don't have anything else to add, so we'll sit tight. Thank you.
Ms. Daniels?
Just quickly, I want to remind you all, I sit on the Board of Education, so I am aware of how it works with public comments and other things. But I just want to remind you all, you should be objective with this, and you're commenting directly to the person with the thing in front of you, and as though you're serving the city, you're not serving individuals. So I just want to remind you all of that. Please be cognizant of that.
Commissioner Spencer?
Yeah, I just want to go on the record and say, I did say this last meeting as well. I've never actually had a personal conversation with Mr. DiMartino. I'm not really familiar with him at all. I'm familiar with some of his work, and my support for this project hasn't really been based on any personal relationships or anything like that. I do personally support this project because I do think it makes good sense for our economic development in our city, but I do get a bit frustrated with comments like that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission or from the public?
And McKinney, I go back to the fact that I haven't felt that this has been very transparent because, I found out kind of by mistake. As we go forward, first of all, I would like, and especially for, the North End, the people, and that I'm sure they weren't aware, we weren't aware. Can we have notification of like the people in downtown business, in the business district, or where the zoning was going to be changed? I'm surprised. There's a dinky thing going on in my town, and I'm in the area, and I received a letter saying that there's going to be a zone change. I did go into the statutes. I just didn't understand why. And that's why I think there's been a lot of confusion with the downtown business district. You know, when we took a vote, it doesn't happen to be unanimous if they are for or against it. It would be nice to know how many people were in favor or not, but there's been none. I mean, I only happened to look at the minutes and somebody said something to me, or I wouldn't be aware. I think that's why there's so few people. I mean, so I just questioned, and I called the mayor's office to ask, and I asked for a call back, but I did not get a call back. And so I just am wondering, and now I can understand why you are so upset, because this could have gone through, and the last time, and there has just not been. I just think there's so many areas that have been kind of not very transparent or not involved.
I think that Dr. Kozakowski could address that.
Regarding the notification requirements, Section 5.7 in the Zoning Code outlines the notification requirements for public hearing items. There's an exception. There's two parts, two public hearings here. First, the easy one, the special exception. There is a requirement that that notice of the public hearing is posted twice in a newspaper with regular circulation within the city. The city posts has a contract with the Hartford Courant, so all our public hearing notice and decision requirements notifications go to the Hartford Courant, and those were posted before. Also, there is a requirement to notify direct abutters of the public hearing. So it's essentially other properties that touch the subject property require a letter. Hold on, please. And then for everybody else, there's a requirement to post a public hearing sign on the property. There is specifications for where the public hearing sign has to go, from which would be at the road, perpendicular to the road, subject to being visible. Considering the challenges of doing that on Main Street, we authorize posting along the building or on the building, so of the public hearing. With regards to the text amendment, requiring it does get noticed in the newspaper, but a text amendment, while the focus of it today relates to Main Street, it does have citywide implications. So the idea of notifying every property owner in the city of Middletown of a text amendment is not practical and not required in the code. And there's no ability to post a public hearing sign on a text amendment that's not tied to a specific location. So as far as public notice, it's the position of the zoning officer and through me, the supervisor, that the public hearing notice requirements have been satisfied for these applications.
Hold on, you have to step up to the microphone.
And we can happily continue this conversation outside of this venue.
I'm going to recognize...
But I do want on record to note that I am a budding property owner, and I did not get any notification. And as you just explained all the reasons why, I also looked for the signage and everything else, and I said, I haven't seen anything. So all of that, and it says at least, at minimum, the regulation must require the commission to provide additional notice by certified mail to owners of property adjacent to that of which is subject to the hearing, posting signs on the subject property, or both. I had neither. So we shouldn't have even had the hearings because I wasn't properly notified. And I really, and so many others too. I just felt that, notification is very important. And I know that we try to, put it into the paper, but I hope going forward that not only myself, but, anyone involved in the downtown business district would have notification and acknowledge that they are, so that they can have their input in it. And you can make your decisions after hearing truly a true scope of the people of Middletown and what they want.
Thank you. Commissioner Giuliano?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what got everybody into this conundrum is the fact that the ARPA funding application for this particular building is so specific to a grocery store. I don't think anybody looking at that application or reviewing it would reasonably conclude that it's within the realm of foreseeable possibility that it could morph into a cannabis store, that a grocery store could morph into a cannabis store. If the application were for nondescript retail space, I think then it would have been susceptible to that interpretation. But, I mean, I can't conceive that it's even reasonable to think that somebody presented with this with the application, again, as it's written, as specific as it is, would conclude that anything radically different from a grocery store was going to be proposed for that site. And those who were tasked with making the decision on whether to approve the application or not, it is owed to them to give them another bite at the apple, given that situation. And where they decide to go with it, they decide to go with it. But I don't think I think trying to make any kind of sense out of this by moving forward on it without that process taking place puts everybody in a bad light. It makes this commission look bad. It makes the council look bad. It makes the ARPA task force look bad. And it doesn't, and frankly, it doesn't make the applicant look very good. So let's fix this. Take it back to square one and fix it. Do it the right way, cross the T's, dot the I's, and then bring it to us again. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Mrs. Thompson?
So I just have a quick question and a comment. I want to reiterate that as a North End resident, this is completely unacceptable. And to go off of your point, no notification for something this substantial, be it either a grocery store or a cannabis dispensary, North End residents need to be notified of that. That is a huge change in our community. So in the future, we would appreciate a heads up, please. Thank you.
Director Kozakowski, was there notification? Was there a posted sign? Were there letters sent out?
Yes, there was a posted sign, and there was, they provided copies of certified receipts for the mailing.
Commissioners Spencer, and I believe you had a picture of the sign as well.
Yeah, I do. I have a picture of the sign that's been displayed out back for a number of weeks. And I also just want to go on record saying that I am a resident of the downtown here in Middletown. I actually walked here tonight to the meeting, so just want to throw that one out there. But here's what it looks like out back, and out front I know that there's also a sign in the window. Yes, so.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments?
If I could just...
Yep, please state your name and address for the record.
Larry McHugh, 87 Olander. I'm speaking as a private citizen. What I don't like is the fact that there were people implying that the applicant, Mr. DiMartino, was maybe doing something possibly shady. That bothers me. You have a developer that comes in here, expends millions of dollars, went through all of the steps that he thought he had to go through, and then he has to listen to people taking personal whacks at him. And I respect everyone in this room. I think most of you know me. And I wouldn't be speaking this way if I didn't feel that it was wrong. And that's it.
Thank you. I would like to address that as well. And as far as I know, none of the commissions have been swayed by anything from Mr. DiMartino. I have no personal relationship with Mr. DiMartino. Director Kozakowski?
From a just an administrative standpoint, the commission, based on the statutory timeline requirements, is obliged to close the public hearing tonight unless an extension is granted by the applicant. So the next 3 meetings, regularly scheduled meetings for the commission, are April 23rd, May 14th, and May 28th. So for the applicant's benefit, I whipped up a quick memo for you to sign. If you just want to indicate which, you may. Oh, thank you.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Which number is she?
We will authorize an extension of time, and I'll sign this document. And I just want to say that I appreciate the desire to make sure that everything is in conformance and that the funding for some of the project matches with what's been proposed. I think we have to keep in mind again that this is a land use agency and that this project would be funded. And so I just want to emphasize that, and that all will be cleared, and hopefully we'll be back here soon to conclude this matter. So I will sign this and return it to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Kozakowski?
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, the applicant did submit a butters list with copies of certified receipts. The butters list for 428 Main Street, there's 5 listed. First one being East Corbin Holdings LLC. Second one, the City of Middletown. The third, DFC of Main Street 420 LLC. Number 4, Main Street LLC. And number 5, MGB Realty LLC. And this abutters list is derived from the owners listed on the tax records for the abutting properties. So mail notification, certified mail, was sent to those owners.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're at a point where we need to decide if we want to keep this public hearing open or closed. Do I have a motion from?
Do we have an extension?
We do, but.
Oh, I didn't see it. To what day? What day?
Which day did you pick?
We have selected April 23rd, although we would be happy to extend it more as necessary. May I
Yes, you may approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2 weeks.
I will entertain a motion in either direction to keep this open or to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing on items 6.1 and 6.2 to our meeting of April 23rd, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying, oh, is there any discussion on this matter? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Thank you. Public hearing has been extended. Five-minute recess.